We all experience anxiety. It's a natural human response to stress and uncertainty. But when anxiety becomes overwhelming, it can interfere with our daily lives. We might avoid situations that make us anxious. We might struggle to focus or sleep. It's important to remember that we are not alone in this struggle. Millions of people experience anxiety, and there are ways to manage it. One powerful tool for managing anxiety is self-talk. Self-talk is the ongoing conversation we have with ourselves. It can be positive or negative, helpful or harmful. When we're anxious, our self-talk often spirals into negative thought patterns. We might dwell on worst-case scenarios or criticize ourselves harshly. This negative self-talk can fuel our anxiety and make it even harder to cope. But here's the good news. We can change the way we talk to ourselves. By learning to challenge negative thoughts and reframe our thinking, we can reduce anxiety and build resilience. It takes practice, but with time and effort, we can learn to manage our anxiety and live fuller, more meaningful lives. This essay will explore some key self-talk questions that can help you navigate anxiety and find peace. Anxiety often thrives in the shadows of uncertainty. When we can't quite pinpoint the source of our unease, it becomes easier for our minds to conjure up worst-case scenarios. That's why it's crucial to bring our fears into the light by naming them specifically. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? Don't shy away from the answer, even if it feels uncomfortable or silly. Write it down. Seeing our fears articulated can often diminish their power. It's like letting the air out of an overinflated balloon. For example, imagine you're dreading an upcoming presentation at work. Instead of letting your anxiety simmer as a vague sense of dread, identify the specific fears. Are you afraid of public speaking, of making a mistake, of your colleagues judging you? By naming these fears, you take away their power to control you. You transform them from amorphous anxieties into concrete challenges that can be addressed. Section 4. Evidence versus fear. Once you've identified your specific fears, it's time to put them on trial. Just like in a courtroom, we need to examine the evidence objectively, separating fact from fiction. Ask yourself, what is the evidence that supports this fear? What is the evidence against it? Often, our anxieties are fueled by cognitive distortions, which are exaggerated or irrational thought patterns. For instance, if you're afraid of making a mistake during your presentation, ask yourself, how many times have you presented successfully in the past? What are the chances of you making a catastrophic error? Are your colleagues really waiting to judge your every word, or are they more likely to be supportive and understanding? By systematically examining the evidence, you can start to dismantle the scaffolding of your fear. You may find that your anxieties are largely unfounded, based on assumptions rather than facts. Section 5. Facing the what-ifs. One of the most common and insidious thought patterns that anxiety feeds on is the dreaded what-if spiral. What if I freeze up during the presentation? What if no one laughs at my jokes? What if I completely fail? While it's important to acknowledge our fears, constantly dwelling on worst-case scenarios only amplifies our anxiety. Instead of letting these what-ifs paralyze you, try reframing them as opportunities for problem-solving. Ask yourself, what is the probability of this worst-case scenario actually happening? Often, the likelihood of our most dreaded fears coming true is actually quite low. Then, ask yourself, if the worst-case scenario did happen, what could I do to cope? By having a plan in place, even if it's just a mental one, you empower yourself to handle whatever challenges may arise. Section 6. Building your toolkit. Managing anxiety is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. It's about building a toolkit of strategies that you can draw upon whenever you feel anxious thoughts creeping in. Remember that what works for one person may not work for another, so it's important to experiment and find what resonates with you. Some helpful tools include: when we're anxious, our breathing tends to become shallow and rapid. Taking slow, deep breaths can help to calm the nervous system and reduce feelings of stress. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Regular mindfulness practice can help us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them. Challenge negative thoughts with positive affirmations. Remind yourself of your strengths and past successes. Physical activity releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. Even a short walk can make a difference. Talking to a trusted friend or family member can provide support and perspective. Remember, building your anxiety toolkit takes time and effort. Be patient with yourself and celebrate your progress. By consistently practicing these self-talk questions and coping strategies, you can learn to manage your anxiety and live a more fulfilling and peaceful life.